All right, we're gonna play around with a little bit of serpentine-like movements that are related to a practice called Daoist Snake Qigong. And we're also going to play around with the Brothers Grimm and the story of the white snake. So we'll start with the practice. So you stand with your feet about shoulder width apart. Can be, I guess I have a generous shoulder width here. It's fine, doesn't have to be too precise. The knees are a little bit soft. Hands are at the side of the body, palms facing back. And all you begin to do is you begin to sway the hands forward and back. And you're not trying to bring it into phase with the breath here. Just let the breath be the breath and the movements be the movements, and you can begin to sway the hips forward and back. And so there's no, you don't have to be really precise here as we're doing it. You're just swaying the arms. I'll show you from the side. Just kind of invite in like serpentine-like, snake-like motions to the hands. I don't know how many actual snakes move like this, but you know, serpentine-like, good enough. All right, so you're swaying the arms like this. Okay, so now here's the story. There's a king, and every day at noon, the king has his lunch served to him, and he gets it served on a platter with a silver cover over it. And he eats by himself. No one gets to see what he eats. And so everyone's like, well, what's the king eating every day at noon? And even though it doesn't come to us in the story like this, I guess the cook who prepares it knows. But everyone's like, you know, what's the king eating? And every day when the king's done, he sends his dish away covered. And there's a servant who is, at least on one day, he's tasked with taking the dish away. And he sneaks off by himself with it, I guess, to his quarters or his room or whatever it is. And he uncovers the dish, and lo and behold, there's a white snake. And he's overcome with desire to taste the snake. So we will set aside any obvious critical commentary or analysis here, and even any sophomoric comments. We'll leave them aside, unstated. The guy takes the white snake and he brings it to his lips and he tastes the white snake. And as soon as he tastes it, he's able to understand what the animals and the birds say. And in particular, there's some birds in the windowsill and they're tweeting away, and he can understand them. He understands what their language is. And so in some parts, as I understand it, of alchemical tradition or esotericism, they'll talk about the language of the birds. And there, I guess it means some kind of like complex free association, seeing everything as symbolic, cross-cutting layers that ignore use-mentioned distinctions and the like. But here, like, the guy literally can understand the language of the birds and of the animals. And so that's pretty cool. Now, meanwhile, the queen, the king's wife, has lost a ring. And everyone's looking for this ring that she lost. And people think it's been stolen. And our servant, who can understand the birds and the animals, he's not the thief. He didn't steal it, but somehow the suspicion falls on him. And so he comes before the king, and the king's like, look, dude, this is on you. I think you did it, but regardless, it's on you to find it. And you got to get it to me by the morning, or else we're going to treat you as the thief, and it's going to be a bad scene. Now here, at that moment, story, we're going to transition to a different warm-up. So you're just kind of wiping the tabletop, palms down, in kind of a big sort of figure eight-like movement. And you can, if you like, make it really big like I'm doing and send the elbows back as the other arm swings forward. Or you can make it small. 2 turntables and a microphone. All right, back to our story. So the guy's on the hook, the servant's on the hook. He's got to find the ring, and he walks down to the courtyard, and as he's trying to, I guess, figure out what to do, he hears some ducks over on the side by the water talking. I mean, they're quacking, but he can understand one of them. He understands them all, but there's one talking. He hears it, and the duck says, oh my, I have a terrible stomach ache. I ate this ring that I found, and oh my goodness, shouldn't have done that. This sucks. And the guy hears it, and he goes and he takes the duck, and he goes to the cook, and he says to the cook, he says, well, this duck looks like it's ready to go. It's good and fat. Why don't you, my suggestion is you use this duck for tonight's dinner. And so the cook kills the duck, and as he's cleaning it, out comes the ring from the stomach contents. And the servant takes the ring, goes to the king. He says, "Hey, king, look what I got." The king's like, "Oh man, that is fantastic. You have done me a solid." King's all about happy wife, happy life. He's got the ring back, and he says, "Listen, man, I was really harsh on you, and I'm sorry. I'll give you whatever you want, I'll give you a fiefdom. I'll put you in charge of whatever branch of government. I'll give you a ton of money, whatever you want." And the servant, for reasons we don't quite know, although we actually can imagine, he's sad in his heart, and he doesn't want to be in this kingdom anymore. And so he says to the king, "King, I was born to walk alone, like a drifter. And I got to walk down that lonely road out to the field of dreams. I got to go. Even like a hobo, like this guy's into the deep cuts. He's like, I got to go." And he says, "But even though I'm going to walk the lonely road by myself, like a drifter, I could use a horse. So could you give me a really good horse? And I could use money. Money's always good. Can you give me, I don't know, like an expense account, and I don't know, like a debit card that I could use, or I don't know, we could put on my phone, or I could tap with my watch. I just need some money." And he says, "Sure, you got all the money you want, and here's the best horse, and you go. You're always welcome here." And so the guy takes the horse, and he goes off down that lonely road. And you're not really walking it alone. He's got the horse, but he's going along, and he's riding the horse actually. And he comes to some fish that are in a pond, but they're kind of stuck in an area of the pond. They're caught like in the reeds, and they're stuck. And there's these three fish, and they're just talking in fish language. They just call it fish. It sounds to us like glub, 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 but to the servant, he can hear and understand. And they're saying, "Oh, we are stuck in the reeds. We're totally screwed. I wish there was some way we could get over to the other part of the pond. We need to get there." And just transition back to the side serpentine-like movements here. And so the guy, he takes the fish one by one, he lifts them up, he carries them over to the other part of the pond, he puts them in the pond, and they're free. And they say, "Wow." In unison, they say, "We owe you. Like, that's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. If there's any way we can pay you back in the future, we got your back." And the guy goes along on the horse, and he's going along, and he hears like these screams, which sounds horrible. I guess it is. And he's like, "Well, what is that?" They're tiny screams. And he looks down, and they're coming from down, and he realizes it's the ants. His horse is stepping on a bunch of ants, and the ants are screaming, and then they're saying like, "Oh, please stop," for crying out loud, right? Just please move that thing away. And the guy hears him, and he understands him, and he moves the horse away. He goes around, and as he's going away, the king of the ants, these ants, I guess they have a king. As I recall, I think ants have a queen, but this time it's a king, and it's a patriarchal story. That's what we got. And the king says, "You have saved the kingdom. If there's anything we can do for you, we owe you. I got you. I remember you." So the guy's going along on the horse, and he comes to a tree, and there's a raven, a couple raven parents. And the raven parents, they're like tiger parents, and come back to the figure 8 wiping the tabletop. And they're kicking their little fledglings. I don't know, the hatchlings? I don't know. They're kicking their kid ravens out of the nest. They're saying, "It's time for you to go. You got to be out on your own. You're ravens. You're not whatever non-ravens that would be coddled would be. It's time to go." So they kick them out, and the raven babies fall onto the ground, and they're hanging out there, and they're screaming, they're crying, they're saying, "Oh man, we're totally screwed. We can't do this." And our servant understands them because he understands the language of the birds. And he says he's not the type, I guess, to just kind of defer to parents. He steps in, for better or worse, and he said, okay, I'm going to help. And so he takes his horse and he hacks his horse to death. So I guess the horse wasn't a big talker, or for whatever reason, he kills the horse and he chops it up and he puts the horse carcass pieces in front of the raven babies, and the ravens eat it up. And they get their strength and they say, wow, that was a damn fine horse. Thank you. We owe you. And the guy's like, don't mention it. But now he gets to walk down that lonely road like a drifter by himself, right? He's walking along the road, doesn't have a horse anymore. And he comes to another kingdom or town. I don't know. It's a king. It's got a king. And he sees a proclamation that has just been posted. Come back to the swaying of the arms. And the proclamation says that the princess, the king's daughter, is looking to get married. If there's any would-be suitors who would like to, win her hand, it's like that, right? Then they can enter into a contest. It's a very, very serious, difficult contest. But then whoever wins will get the hand of the princess, or I guess the whole, get the whole shebang. They'll get to marry the princess. And I guess we're assuming like it's heterosexual suitors, I don't know, but like it's clear that the guy is eligible to at least try. And then he reads the fine print, and the fine print says, like, the problem is, just beware, if you enter the contest and you don't win it, come back to the wiping the tabletop. If you don't win it, you will be killed. And the guy thinks about it for a moment. He says, I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. I'm going in. I'm going to do this. And he looks, and over, I guess, over to the side, there's a pile of dead bodies of the old suitors, right? The reason the proclamation has just been made is because like all the other would-be suitors are dead, and they've, there's no one left on Tinder. And, so they put up a new proclamation. He sees it. He said, okay, I'm going to do it. He signs up. And they say, all right, bud, here's your deal. And they take him to the edge of the water, to the ocean. And they take a ring. It's not the same ring he found before. There's a lot of rings here, at least two. They take the ring and they throw it as far as they can out into the ocean. And they say, your job is you got to go into the ocean and you got to get that ring. And if you come out of the water without the ring, you're going to get killed. We'll kill you. That's it. You lost. And the guy's like, oh, okay. And then lo and behold, the three fish who we encountered before, I guess he not only understands them, but they understand human language now. Maybe they licked their own white snake under the water somewhere. And they find the ring and they bring it to the guy on a shell. I'll confess, I don't yet understand the symbolism of the shell, but it's on a shell. They bring it to the shore. He takes the ring from the shell and he's like, oh, thanks. And I guess we're even now. And he takes the ring and he goes and he come back to the waving the hands on the side. He goes to the contest people, say, here, I got the ring. And they say, oh man, you won. We're gonna go talk to the princess. They talk to the princess. She asks some questions. And she finds out he's not royalty. He's a servant, or at least was a servant. And she's like, I don't want that, man. I'm not gonna do that. No, I'm not doing it. And I guess they respect her. I mean, even though she's kind of reneging on the deal, but like, that's good. You shouldn't force someone here. I mean, even a princess, even like with these death contests, right? And so they said, well, what are you going to do? You kind of promised. And she says, okay, I'm going to give him another contest. And so she takes 10 bags of millet and she does it herself. She spreads the millet out in this really complicated garden. She spreads them 10 sacks of millet in the garden. And then she said, all right, here's the deal. He's got to get every one of these tiny grains of millet. We're going to come back to the tabletop here. Out of the garden, back into the sacks before sunrise. And if he does, he's done it. He wins. And if not, kill him. The guy hears it. He's like, oh, okay. All right. I'm still in it. He says, I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. Here I go again. And he goes to the garden, but now the ants are there. In the ant kingdom, they said, we got you, bud. And all of the ants in the ant kingdom go and gather up the millet, and they bring in, they put it back in the sacks, and it's even before dawn. They're out there under the LED lights. They got, some environmentally friendly certification in this kingdom, and it's all done, at 3 a.m. And the princess is told, and she's like, all right, let me take a look at this guy. And she looks and come back to the waving the hands. She's like, well, he's easy on the eyes. Maybe we can make this work. She said, I'm going to give him one more. And she says, buddy, listen, we can do this thing, but first you need to bring me fruit from the tree of life. That's like biblical or, deep mythology stuff there, right? Now here, at least as I remember from the edition of the Grimm's brothers that I looked at, the story gets kind of quick, and the ravens, who've now grown up, they go and get fruit from the tree of life, and they bring it to him, they drop it off, and he gives it to her, and she's like, all right, let's get married. And so they get married, and then the king of this kingdom dies at some point, and the servant, the guy who'd been the servant, becomes the new king. And that's that. So let's close this by lowering the chi 3 times. 1, down to the height of the navel. Turn the Laogong points from the navel. 2, 3. All right. That's that.